Dance program at UCCS. For those of you who don't know, Prologue is a collaboration between a lot of people. Our program, the Theater and Dance program, Theater Works, of course, the Department of Visual and Performing Arts, the Dean's Office, and the Chancellor's Office all generously support this program. We have three amazing guests. I do not want to do a lot of introductions because I'd rather, and we all would rather, hear from them. But the last thing I want to say before I bring them out is a thank you to all of you. You make this program possible. My colleague at Theater Works, Kate Malowens, my colleague in the department, Max Schulman, we have all sorts of wonderful talks planned for next year. But as is often the case, we like to be spontaneous, so we can have people like the people you're seeing come when they have time. So look next year for prologues and conversations that will happen on Sundays, for sure, but also periodically at other times when we get these amazing guests that we have. We'll have all of that information for you coming up in the next month or so, so keep your eye out for it. Without further ado, I want to introduce three people. And I'm going to introduce them all, and then we'll applaud and bring them out onto the stage. Bonita Hamilton has been starring in The Lion King for 15 years. I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that, but she's here. Laiona Michelle is a fabulous Broadway performer and writer, and she just recently started working on a musical about Nelson Mandela. And Kim Fields is a television star from Facts of Life, from Dancing with the Stars, so many other things, and also an extraordinary theater person. So, I said that before, so I'm going to say it again. Without further ado, please welcome Kim, Laiona, and Bonita. It's so special to have the three of you. There's some waters too, if you like. Because I gave just a wee introduction. I was wondering if to start, each of you might talk a little bit about how you got started in the arts, and especially how you got started in the theater. I have to just say, anecdotally, part of the reason this is happening, the main reason this is happening, is because Bonita and I have been dear friends now. We just realized, oh, it's 20 years. And we starred together in many shows at Brandeis University when we were and then she left and became a star on Broadway, and I became a professor. And because I just have so many Broadway roles. And so when I asked Bonita to come out, I've been wanting Bonita to be here for a long time, I said, come, let's do a panel. Let's celebrate Broadway. Let's celebrate women of color on Broadway. And who do you think would be great to join you? And she mentioned Laiona, who also went to Brandeis before my time there, and Kim Fields. So thank you very much. I wondered if you could, my lob of a first question, talk to us a little bit about how you got involved in the theater, each of you, and why it's so important to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so very happy to be here, and thank you, Bonita, for inviting me to be in this panel. I always knew I wanted to be a professional actress ever since I was a little girl. I just didn't know how it would happen until I went to see my very first Shakespeare play, and I remember it was Romeo and Juliet, and I was about 11 years old, and our school took us. And on the stage was one black male, and he was starring as Romeo. And I was so deeply moved by it, I couldn't believe that we could talk like that. Wow, we could talk like that. And at 11 years old, it just awakened something in me. And I remember just picking up Shakespeare books and starting to just read Shakespeare plays, put on my own Shakespeare plays, and starring as Juliet with my friends and putting them on for my church. But to make a long story short, I went to Alabama State University with Bonita and trained, and made it to Brandeis University, and I've been doing that ever since. Yeah, and the theater has always been my home.
Bonita.
So I have a bit of a different path. I always wanted to be the next Oprah Winfrey. Yeah, no, I really wanted to be. So I started in communications. I was a radio DJ when I was 15. And I would go to... So I'm gonna fast forward real quick because that's a whole book that I could write about. And then I started working at the Pearson Pagoda in the Montgomery Mall from Montgomery, Alabama. And the director of theater at Alabama State University, her name is Dr. Tommy Tania Stewart. And she was new to the city and she was trying to build her theater program. And I was working in the mall and I was on my little lunch break and I was eating the orange chicken from the, the Asian restaurant. And she said, "You look like you would make a good Dina Jones. Can you sing?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I sing in my church choir." And she said, "I want you to come and audition for this play, Dreamgirls." And I said, okay. So long story short, I would fast forward. I went to the theater, I walked to the door, and I opened the door and I saw the theater students singing, and I closed the door and ran out of the theater, and one of her people caught me. And she said, "You have to come back in, Dr. Stewart would like to see you." And I went in, I auditioned, and I looked at the list the next day, and I got the lead role of Dina Jones. And the rest is history.
I'm here on a grant from the government because I've never been on Broadway. I'm here because I know people, I'm related to people who've been on Broadway, including my amazing husband, Christopher, up there. Hi, baby. My two sons, Sebastian and Quincy. Hi, fellas. And my mother. So I started as a kid. I started in commercials, but my precursor was my mother, who's a dynamic, epic actress, and she was. We lived in New York, and she went to Performing Arts High School, the school that the movie Fame is based on. And she was a teen mom, so sometimes I say I also went to Performing Arts High School because I was in her belly in her senior year. And so my mom joined an acting troupe of players, if you will, that were really, really dynamic and the kind of go-to set of actors in New York City in the early to mid 70s. And we couldn't afford a babysitter. And so like most of the other people there, so she would bring me, and there were other kids there, and they couldn't afford babysitters, their families. And so we would imitate what we saw our families doing to entertain ourselves. And the founder of that company, his wife said, "Wow, they're actually really good." And she started what's called a mini ensemble. And from there, we did a production of The Wiz. And I have a photograph of me as I'm about this big. And that was my first time on the stage, but I promise you, I was not a performer. I'm very shy, and I certainly was as a kid. And so being able to, hey, let's perform and all that wasn't my thing. But when my mom landed the role of Minnie Fay in Hello Dolly with Pearl Bailey on Broadway and then touring with it, I would visit her at the theater and seeing what I would come to know as the craft, seeing all that went into creating the costumes and the sets and the lighting and the characters, and that all spoke to me tremendously as a 5-year-old kid. And so that's really, what bit me, so to speak. And then from there we moved to LA, and I started doing television, but my mother always made sure that she was heading up theater programs at schools, in the inner city, at various places, and so I was always in and around theater. And then in the 80s, my family produced a Broadway show called Don't Get God Started. I didn't get on Broadway because my mother was in it. Dirty mom. But I ended up replacing her to do the tour because she didn't want to travel. So that's a lot of my theater stuff.
Well, I want to sort of jump off on that. These three women are phenomenal actors, singers, and I didn't actually know this kid, but Laiona and Bonita showed me a performance of yours on Dancing with the Stars a few years ago, and you're an extraordinary dancer too. I wonder if I can use that as a jumping off point to talk.
No, you may not.
Go watch it, it's great. But could you talk about, and I'm going to throw this to all of you, but since you've got the mic, a little bit about how you've managed to transition between television and theater so seamlessly around your life, and what are some of the major differences that you find in the two mediums?
Well, I think a lot of times as actors, you forget that if you've started out in theater, that then there are cameras right up on you. And so, you don't have to reach the row double H. You don't have to reach row 135 with your performance right here, because now there's a camera that's right here. And so developing almost a completely different style of acting, if you will, is really important. Because otherwise, then you come across like angry actor, because you're just shouting all of your lines. You're doing too much. And so that's one of the main things, in terms of that transition. But, on the flip side of that, for people who are television and film actors, who then, because, and I'm gonna say it, because of their celebrity, they book Broadway. And it's like, boo-boo, I'm in row 8 and I can't hear you, I can't see what you're doing because you've got no training. So conversely, you have to have that so that you understand. You have to be able to fit your genre. You have to be able to fit your medium as well.
Bonita, I want to answer that question too, sort of like the importance of training and the craft. I also want you to talk a little bit about, you've been on a smash Broadway hit for 15 years, and you spoke last night very eloquently about the power of that, and the fact that you are always still connected to that audience that is there that night when they're seeing you.
Yes.
Could you talk about that, and also talk about some of your training?
Okay. So I've been doing the show, like you said, for 15 years, and a lot of people ask me, or a lot of people in our community ask me, gosh, how do you do a show for 15 years? Because we are gypsies. We go from, we do a show, we rehearse it for 4 weeks, we perform it for 4 weeks, and we are out the door. The lines are gone. But there is something that is very, how many of you have seen The Lion King? Oh, yeah. Okay, thanks. There is something very, very special about that show.
Yes.
It transcends all barriers, cultural, racial, age. It transcends, and it speaks to, it speaks. You asked me how I keep the show fresh, right? I keep the show fresh. A very real thing happened that I discussed yesterday with Kevin. When we were in school in Brandeis, I saw Laiona Michelle doing Medea at the Lyric. Was it the Lyric? Yeah, in Boston. And there was the ending of it where she, slaughtered her children. It was very dramatic. It was blood everywhere, and the music was, and people wept in that moment. My roommate was sitting next to me, and she was weeping. And I said, girl, get it together, let's go. And we were walking down the stairs. This way. And then the orchestra, because we were in the cheap seats, and the orchestra was coming that way. And she was walking down the stairs. I was trying to console her. And she was, it's over. I was like, just come on. So why are you running it? You're running it for me. This gentleman walks out of the theater, and he falls dead right there.
Oh my God.
And my cousin, who was a doctor, he went, and his wife said, is there a doctor in the house? And Ricardo said, I got him. And he got down, and he started working on him. And he worked on them for 30 minutes. When we stepped outside, and he had to work on them until the EMT came. And Ricardo came out, and I said, he's gonna be okay, right? And he said, no, he's dead. And I said, what? In that moment, gosh, it stays with me because the way I approach doing 15 years in a row, this is someone's first experience seeing theater, and this will be someone's last experience seeing theater. And I want to give them 153% of my 100% every time.
That's a beautiful, wonderful story, and such an extraordinary performance.
True story.
True story. Laiona, could you talk a bit, I mean, whatever, we can talk about it, whatever, but you know, one of the things talking about training and talent and the stories that propel you in the theater, you have become, not only are you a phenomenal actor and singer, but you're now writing, and you have a piece that you're working on about Nelson Mandela. You just finished one about Nina Simone. Could you talk a little bit about that part of your career and the creation of these wonderful works?
Thank you. I live in New York City, which is very overcrowded with actors and singers and dancers, a lot of talent, so much talent, but it's really overpopulated. And I found that I'll say the last 10 years of my life, I got stuck with knocking on doors and trying to be seen for parts that I felt that I was worthy of, and not being able to get the appointments that I wanted. And just really complaining, and the work just wasn't satisfying. And my manager got sick of hearing me complain, and he said, well, what do you want? You know, you've done a Broadway show. I was in a show called Amazing Grace, where I was a principal actress. I played the role of Ayotunde from Sierra Leone. And the writer of that show, his name was Christopher Smith, and the name of the show was Amazing Grace. He was a retired policeman. And all I kept thinking was that he became a policeman. He left his job as a policeman and leaped into our field and has his first Broadway show. And I was just like so taken by that. And here's a field that I feel like, you know, we own, you know, we train in, we work on our craft, and I'm knocking on doors trying to get seen, get heard. And being around the creative table, I remember just being with him and him trusting me and building the character that was close to me and my roots, and him trusting me and crafting the lines and developing the role. From there, the walk away from that was that, you know, Laiona, you help someone else. You gotta start helping yourself, and you gotta stop complaining about the work that you're getting. And you gotta start doing what rings true for inside of you. And for me, the universe kept bringing to me Nina Simone. And I've always been fascinated by her, in love with her. And it started as a passion project. And with theater, being an artist, you have to be passionate because it is an overcrowded industry. So there's people in our industry who are in it because they want to be stars or because they just enjoy it and they're in and they're out. But then there's other people who are born to be artists. And they're the ones that sow in the seeds, willing to do it for very little money, and pouring their heart and blood to the work. And I've always felt that I was one of those people. But in doing so, I had to write, I had to be a creator on the other side of the table. So I started to write. 2 years ago, I started working on Nina Simone, and it went from workshop to stage. And I had the first production at the George Street Playhouse. And then I was commissioned by Nelson Mandela's estate to write the Mandela, the new musical development. And I think about the fact that had I became too comfortable in my situation or just sat still and continued to complain, what would I be doing now? But continuing to complain that I don't see a reflection of myself on stage, the words don't sound like they fall out of my mouth. There's not enough diversity in New York City. Why is that? And just asking the questions and not turning the mirror on myself. So I stood the test, and I'm still standing the test. And it takes daily work. And there are so many women of color and people of color that are doing the work. And to me, that's what makes me feel satisfied as an artist. Like I feel like, you know, in my 40s, that I'm just now walking in my truth as a full artist, as a creator.
And having having Nina Simone as an artistic sort of model and muse, and that show, which I haven't seen, but gosh, I've always loved. Has everyone known Nina Simone, the singer? Would this be enough time for me to ask you? Would you be willing? I know you will. We've already talked about this, and we have the wonderful Stephanie. It just seems like this would be a good time. Would you sing us a song?
I would love to sing something. Yeah. This song is it's called Love Me or Leave Me. It's one of the lighter numbers in the show. But just to tell you a little bit about Little Girl Blue, it's a one-woman musical, and it goes from like child prodigy to high priestess of soul. So it's a bit of a roller coaster of a ride. But this one song, Love Me or Leave Me, is a cover song, and it's one of the lighter numbers in the show. So yeah, let's do it. Love Me or Leave Me. Yeah. And if you know it, you can sing along. No. Ready? Woo! Put your hands together. Say love me or leave me or let's make it lonely. Don't believe me, but I love you only. I'd rather be lonely than happy with somebody else. You might find the night time, the right time for kissing. My time is my time. Just reminiscing, regretting instead of forgetting. With somebody else. There'll be nobody else unless that someone's you. Oh, I'm talking to you. Independently. I want your love, don't want tomorrow. I need today to give back tomorrow. Your love is my love. There is nobody else. Oh, love me or leave me, or let me be lonely. You won't believe me, but I love you only. I'd rather be lonely than happy with somebody else. You might find a night time for yourself. My time is my time. Just reminiscing, regretting instead of forgetting. With somebody else. Oh, there'll be nobody else unless that someone's you. Each and every one of you. I intend to be independently. Ooh, I want your love, don't want tomorrow. Happy today to give back tomorrow. Your love is my love. My love is your love. There is nobody How many of you want to hear the whole music? Let's figure out how to make that happen. That is great. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions from the audience, so I'm going to sort of lob up another sort of softball that we've already sort of talked a little bit about over lunch, and then think of your questions because I'll come around and find you. But Kim, Bonita, Laiona, one of the things we were discussing this afternoon is that women of color on Broadway, but also in the arts. And could you speak a little bit from your experiences, but also what you've observed? One, would you say there is still a big problem? Obviously, this is a leading question, I know there is. It's a big problem in representation at the highest levels of theater.
I mean, is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just across the board in the arts, you know, whether it's TV, film, theater, regional theater, Broadway, tours, you know, yes, there's still a long way to go. We've certainly come a long way. And we recognize and, you know, applaud those entities that do colorless casting and all sorts of things. But, you know, there's also been a wonderful onslaught, if you will, of platforms. And so wonderful venues cropping up, certainly in the digital spaces. So, for example, if you're a student, even if you're not a student, if you're just like, you know what, I'm 83, but I want to do the Harold Channing story, whatever you want to do, you know what I'm saying? And so you now, you know, you can do a monologue and pop it on Instagram, and you've become a star. So there's so many more outlets for people, YouTube, of course, for people to put their work out there, and to have more opportunities for the creatives, you know, people who may start out as an actor or a policeman and be able to now have their work produced, because you don't have to, the gatekeeping industry has changed, where it used to be a good old boys club, and then it used to just be a handful of people that held the keys to the city. And now you've got opportunities where you didn't always have them. To either put your own works out there so that somebody can see you and your stars start to shine brighter, but also in different ways that you can wear hats that you weren't able to wear before. You know, me as a writer, as a director. Felicia Rashad, my husband just told me, has been booked to direct her first Broadway show. That's fantastic. And so there's opportunities, you know. Do we own theaters on Broadway? You know, do we own certain things that help the narrative continue? Not necessarily, but we've made a lot of strides, I think.
Bonita, I know you have an answer to this, but I wanted to sort of point out, we were talking this morning, it's like, you're on a show, obviously, where there's a lot of it's a South African show, right? So there have been, especially in the last 10, 20 years, these hits like Lion King, like Hamilton, Bring the Noise, Bring the Funk, some of the others, that sort of capture the national attention, but that doesn't necessarily represent everything that's going on. And you spoke to that.
Right, so we are sort of like the unicorn on Broadway. We have 48 cast members of color in our cast, and 9 South African tracks. So I booked Lion King like 2 weeks out, not 2 weeks, 2 months out of graduate school. So my experience with going up for, say, an Audrey is quite different. We're 21 years old, though. The Lion King is 21 years old. And I just feel so, a little frustrated by there are not more roles for women of color on Broadway. It's always in every show, and this is just across the board, that one black track.
Yeah.
Come on. We're a talented people. We need to be represented. I have children that love theater. I have a 10-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. And I feel like it's so important to see them, they have to see themselves represented on stage. So I said, you want to come see The Lion King again? No, Mommy, we've seen it 18 times. I only got to see Wicked. I'm like, that's our competition, kid. You know, so I just feel like, I've been doing the show for 15 years, and I'm so grateful. We have to tell our own stories. We have to write our own stories. I'm so grateful to Laiona Michelle, because she called me one day. She said, yeah, thinking I'm really working on something really big. That's how she talks to me. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Lainey? She said, really good. Yeah, that's her voice. And she said, do you want to be a part of this show that I'm writing? I said, writing a show, girl? And she said, yeah. I said, what is it? And she said, so it's top secret, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I said, what is it, Lainey? Laiona. And she said, I'm working on Mandela, and I think I have a part for you. I was like, yes, I'll read the stage directions. That's how important it is for us to, I'm that actor that'll just be there and do it, because I want my kid to see a person of color in the arts.
Based on what you just said, Bonita, for me as a writer, it was, I was just so moved to just sit down in those workshops with Nandi Mandela, Nelson Mandela's granddaughter, and have her be in a room full of black and brown faces telling their story. What a huge honor and a responsibility to be able to serve that and to serve that to Broadway. It's a gift. You know, it really is a gift. And it's a gift to work on Nina Simone, you know, a woman who has taken the blows 40, 50 years ago and was, you know, labeled as the angry black woman, and to be able to then quiet down some of those voices. And I think it's important that as a black woman, it's important as artists of color that we own our stories and tell our stories, you know, so that, you know, there can be more opportunities for people of color. So, and the shoes fit just right when we do that. They really do, so, yeah.
I'm going to come around to other questions. I'm going to come right into, while I'm going up there, I want to ask you, and this is going to be lightning round, could you name, each of you, who some of your heroes in the arts have been? So we have that sense, I always ask this question, so a sense of who has led and guided you. Be it a teacher, be it a star.
Nina Simone, Ruby Dee.
Dr. Tommy Tania Stewart, my instructor. Cicely Tyson, Angela Bassett, Viola Davis, Meryl Streep. You gotta throw Meryl in there. Chip Fields, you know. Yeah, I got a lot of them. Here you go.
Langston Hughes, Ruby Dee, Ozzie Davis, Jodie Foster. And to me, I mean, if you are like acting and putting your whole foot in it, you're streeping. So definitely Meryl Streep. When you can transcend your whole name to that being a verb, you're really doing something. And Felicia Rashad. But her theater work that, you know, a lot of people may not know because they're used to her work on television. And now in movies in Creed, where she will bust your head wide open with her work in Creed. Thank you, honey, for showing me that. But lastly, my husband, real talk, and I would tell you this if he was not in this room. My husband, in my autobiography, which is available.
That's life.
Yes, Blessed Life available on audiobooks and in stores. And, you know, I'm all about it. And so is my coffee, Kim Field Signature Blends. But my husband, when he is performing, it's just, we just co-wrote a piece together for Heritage Christian Center, which is what moved us. We live in Aurora now, so we're here. And so just even collaborating with him as writers and directors and producers, but his mind is so amazing, and his knowledge of just almost everything. But then when he executes on the boards, oh my goodness. It is lightning in a bottle, and then I just feel like I keep moving the bottle because I keep catching the lightning every time he does something. So he's beautiful. Really, isn't that wonderful? But he performer and helps me to reach new heights and just dig in places where I didn't know that I could, you know. And new performers. I see y'all up there, the cast of, some of the cast of Little Shop. Woo. It was wonderful last night. Thank you so much. Is that you that pulled me up on that stage? Yes. I'm going to beat you up later. But new performers who are about it, really inspire me as well. So thank you.
Question over here.
Go ahead, yeah, please.
Real quick, actually, my family lives in the same neighborhood as Heritage in Aurora. So, very cool. But my name is Irina, and basically we were talking about representation on stage. But to me, theater is like a Kendrick Lamar concert. So you go and Kendrick is talking about Black experience and have a Black person on stage, but the entire audience is white. And everywhere I've gone through my entire theater experience, I haven't seen audience members that look like us, right? And so in terms of that, like we can represent, but then how do we get particularly Black people and Black women, because everything in my life is centered on Black women, into seats to see themselves. The availability of theater, I think, is a huge problem. And how do we dig
accessibility.
into that?
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday at the salon, so you're absolutely right in terms of the accessibility factor, you know, and making sure that people feel that what they can have access to is then relatable. So I think, you know, there are different things that factor in. First of all, just knowledge. When you're marketing your play, for example, are you reaching, you know, the people that you really want to come in? And nowadays with social media, that's a huge part of marketing. You know, if you're buying 15-second ads on TV, what shows are you buying them on? You're buying those spots on shows that people of color or women or a certain age demographic that you're trying to reach. Are they watching? Of course, ticket price comes into play. So if you let folks know, hey, we do group sales. Folks travel in a pack. So, you know, if they know that, oh, wait a minute, I can't afford $25 on my own, but if I get 18 or 19 other folks to come with me, then my ticket drops to, you know, $5 or $7 or $10, then that's doable. So I think we have to find relatable ways to educate the audience that we're trying to access. And a lot of that is how you're marketing, I think, in that regard.
No, you answered that question.
I was just going to add on to what Kim was saying as well, is that the theater, just for so many years, has not always been the welcoming place for Black people. You know, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, less than 100 years ago, you know, Black people were there to escort their mistresses to the theater. So it hasn't always been inviting for us. They would sit way on the balcony, go through the fire escape, in these Broadway houses that have so much history. And we weren't, like even performers that were on stage would go through the fire escape up the back. So I think that theater across the board, regionally as well, have to do a lot of work to reaching a Black audience. And for our culture in particular, I also think that we tend to lean towards seeing a reflection of ourselves on stage. And if we don't see that in the program and in our notices that come to our homes, we don't think that is for us. You know, so I think that the theaters, and I applaud the theaters that are doing that, you know, finding a way to reach all communities, to make the audience more diverse and make it feel more inclusive on stage and inside of the audience. It's very important.
Question here.
This is going to be a very cliche question, but I think it's a very important one. In a few months, I'm going to be moving out to New York to continue my career in acting in the arts, just as so many other students and young artists or 83-year-olds putting monologues on Instagram are going to be doing. And you hear the same advice over and over, which means it's probably valid. Keep going, don't give up, keep going. But what advice would you give young artists, students, people who are about to make that next jump in their career and to make that breach?
I have a very, everybody thinks their advice is good advice.
My advice is good advice. Solid piece of advice. Dr. Stewart, I take her everywhere with me. She's my mentor. But she told us, Laiona, you're going to get way more no's than you get yeses. You're going to get 8 million no's. You're going to get that one yes, right? And it's going to change your life. No doesn't mean never. It means not right now. Period. What's your name?
Jared.
Jared. Second piece of advice. When you go into the room, they're not looking for Brad Pitt to walk into the room. Show them Jared. Show them what's special and unique about Jared and bring Jared into the room. No doesn't mean never. It means not right now. And introduce Jared to the world and show the world what's special about Jared. Because nobody does you better than you. That's it.
Yeah. I think for anybody dealing in a season of transition, which it sounds like, you know, as students about to graduate and move and do all these things, it's a period of expectations. It's a period of, you know, your self-confidence is on a roller coaster ride. It's just a lot of moving parts, literally and figuratively speaking. And I think being open to whatever you believe in has for you, whether it's God, the universe, whatever you believe in, being open to that. Denver was not on my family's radar. I can assure you of that. I promise you. But we were open. We were open to even this far into our careers. I hate to put you on the spot, baby. You know that I do. But this is a forum with women, but a man has asked that question. And if you don't want to answer publicly, if you would connect with Jared, because my husband, when he finished with JMU and he moved to New York, very similar, you know, starting his career in theater, ended up, you think, oh, I'm just gonna go to New York and do this. And next thing you know, he's touring for 3 years on a bus and truck tour and things like that. But he was open. You know, he wasn't so focused on, I'm going to get in DreamWorks, I'm going to get in Noise Funk, I'm going to do this, any black show is mine. And at Carousel, there ain't no black show. But he toured with it. So I think if you wouldn't mind, unless you want to answer now.
I certainly can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow, thank you so much, panel, for letting me speak. Y'all didn't come to hear me speak. The wonderful thing about what you're doing is it really isn't so much different than a dive that anyone else makes into their career or their chosen forum. The thing about it is everything is different. Well, it's not so much different because you just have to have dedication and a willingness to push past the fear. You never actually get to walk away from that willingness to push past the fear. And that's something you have to carry with you. There is I can't even call it self-confidence because you can't be that confident in yourself. What you can be confident is in your dream. And dream confidence is something that you have to make up in your mind now that you have, and then you have to adhere to for your entire career. Your career will beat you up because there'll be moments when even a casting situation, something that you get, something that you wanted, ends up not being what's right. And that's a tough situation. You can also be cast in shows that you don't like. Yep. I've been there before. Now you've got 16 to 18 months of a show that just drives you crazy. Right after college, I did Dutchman, American Rockets Dutchman. it's a difficult piece. And the young lady that was cast opposite of me was a dear friend. We actually went to high school together, and then college, and then became professionals kind of together. In that show, we fought it out nightly. Like, it's a physical show. It was difficult to do. And honestly, at the end of the run, I was like, oh my God, do I want to do this? I don't know. But it was about dream confidence. It was about going back to, hey, sometimes the situations don't feel great. Sometimes I don't feel great. Sometimes it's just hard to do. But this is your dream. And pursuing it means that you're going to have to pursue it through some difficult times. But the best of the times that you could possibly have are at the end of the pursuit. So just keep going.
That's great.
You're meeting a lot. Thank you for that. This is kind of like an offshoot question. In college, I spent 6 times getting arrested protesting apartheid. I got myself on a South African ban sheet organizing a letter writing campaign to free Nelson Mandela. He is my hero. When will that go up? Can I get tickets now?
We will be having, we've done 3 workshops of this so far. So the next step is a lab in New York City, which will take place in September. Our goal that we're eyeballing next year, I kind of feel like it's really fast paced. And I say that my collaborators don't feel like it's fast paced, but for me it is, because it's like a 30, it's a big cast. And just the days of making big old musicals are pretty much over. It's hard to get producers on board to finance that and push it all the way to Broadway, but thank goodness we already have the support from the estate and from these producers. But then there's the responsibility of telling the story and doing it well, you know, and giving someone like Nelson Mandela, who is in a lot of people's eyes the same, and giving them some skin and making you reachable to the audience has been the biggest challenge. So I'd like to take my time with this. You know, I don't want to rush it, but it looks like within the next couple of years. Yeah, thank you. Look out for it, Mandela the musical.
Hi, my question kind of goes off of the first question that we had. I'm transitioning from being on stage to writing and directing, and one of the problems with the marketing is knowing the story you're telling and selling that story to an audience without losing the money audience. How have you come up against that, or have you come up against that, and how do you qualify that your story is a story that needs to be told not just to people who are like you, but people who aren't like you, and get them to stay in the door as opposed to just the people that your story is quote, quote, for?
For me, I found that if you tailor, and this takes a lot of strategic thinking, it takes some committed thinking, but you have to tailor your campaigns to the people that you're trying to reach. And really utilize every avenue to reach the different audiences. So what may work to reach this young lady may not work to reach this gentleman here, may not work to reach these 3 ladies here. Where do you find them? And then what is it that they want to see, what will appeal to them? And really flipping the script on it so that they don't even realize, I want to see that. I want to see that. So finding the thing that will unlock it for each demographic or each audience member or groups of audience members that you're trying to reach, so that if it's a story that is of pain in one regard, her pain may be different from their pain, but pain is pain. So if they have something in common, then you can build off of that, but being able to, again, tailor it to different people. You have some people where it's mostly about the star power. Some people it's about the music. So really finding, and that takes some time, to figure out, well, what is it that will reach this person and reach that person? You're not lying, but, if this is what it takes to get you in the theater versus what it takes to get you in the theater, I'm going to create a campaign for either of you, and then you both meet in the middle. And gone are the days of that kind of thinking and execution being expensive. That's just thinking, you know, and there's so much research nowadays that's available online, like everything under the sun. And then how you reach people, the price points are so different. You know, buying a 15-second spot on television, doing a social media campaign, doing a mailer. I mean, there's so many things now that make it so much easier to get marketing campaigns done and executed. It takes more thought than money.
I think I'm just looking at the time. We only have time for one more question, but we can mingle in the lobby afterwards while they prep the stage for the next show. So
mine's a quick business question for Bonita. We have a lot of students here, and they always want to know about unions. Do we need equity? Do we need this? But my question is, you've been such a long-time cast member with Lion King. When it comes to coming out here and doing something like this, do you have a number of days off? Do you have to ask in advance? Do you have sick days? Do you feel guilty for missing the show this weekend? Are you happy for this? How does it work when you're this long-term contracted employee?
So Disney is a very generous company with time. They give us, it's corporate. Disney is corporate. So they give us 2 weeks vacation. We get personal days, and I get contractual days in my contracts, every contract. The ensemble has run of the show contract, which means they can be in the show until it ends. I'm on a year-to-year contract, so I get renewed every year. So I had to put in a record. When did you ask me to do this? It was like midnight in February or something like that. Long time ago. And I had to put in for this because I have to make sure my understudies are there. I've got 4 understudies. And they like to take off. So, yes, I did have to put in time, put the time in advance.
But no guilt.
Not one piece of guilt. I am so happy to be in Colorado. This is my first time here ever in life. I love it. Yes.
Just a few stage management things before we end, and I'm going to put you on the spot for a question, Bonita, in a second. But I just want to thank you all. This is our final prologue of the year. As I said in the beginning, keep up to date on the way we're going to do talk next year. There's going to be more talks at a different time, so just be, but we're always having on Sundays as well. I'm booking some extraordinary things to talk about next year, so we will let you know soon. It is very important that they are able to set up the stage for the show, which happens in a little over half an hour from now. So we can mingle in the lobby, but do keep the stage clear. So thank you very much, number one. I want to thank all of our guests for being here. And because she's my friend and she can get mad at me later, I'm going to put you on the spot and say, would you be willing to sing just a little bit?
Absolutely not. I'm off today, Kevin.
Well, maybe just something we might recognize from the Lion King.
More to do, they can